Welcome to the Stadium Journey podcast. We hope everyone out there is taking care of yourselves, both your physical and your mental health right now. If you're looking for something to do while you're practicing your proper social distancing, go to our website, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, all of those. Find us at Stadium Journey. And you can find the Stadium Journey podcast, he tried to say, and all of HIAC Talk Radio's other great shows at thebradyhicks.com, or look us up on VOC Nation on iTunes Radio. You can follow the HIAC Talk Radio Network on Twitter at HIAC Talk Radio. And if you'd rather watch your sports talk, we simulcast all of our podcasts live at twitch.tv/DanLaw83. And hopefully somebody's there right now. If you miss one, you can find them all the old archives at youtube.com/DanLaw83. And the whole crew is here. We're practicing our social distancing. I think we established the closest people we have together right now are about, 100 kilometers? Maybe not.
Roughly. Yeah.
I tried to be metric there and it backfired on me. Okay, so Dave Cotton's here. You can follow him at ProFan9. Mark Viquez can be followed at Ballpark Hunter. You can follow our producer, the above-average comedian, Dan Calachico, at DanLaw83. And I'm Paul Baker. You can follow me at PuckmanRI. And tonight we are very pleased to be joined by Frank Fanning. He is the general manager of the Jamestown Tarp Skunks of the Perfect Game Collegiate Baseball League. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me tonight.
All right, so the Tarp Skunks, I guess we got to lead off with the obvious question. What's a tarp skunk?
That's amazing.
Fair question. Well, every single groundskeeper at every single baseball complex in North America deals with that stinky animal. We had one that was underneath our tarp in April. Either it was last year or a couple years ago, but the grounds crew rolled the tarp out. And it was the first time doing this in the spring, and the stink started coming out both ends of the tarp, and the guys just tore off and ran away. So the first thing we hit on was like, man, it's just the skunk that lives in the tarp. So it was kind of a perfect, kind of an inside baseball joke almost. And as we got a little more into our research on the name, we found out that there's a fella named Howard Emke who pitched for the 1929 Philly A's. Won a World Series there, Game 1 against the Cubs, set a strikeout record at the time. He's from Silver Creek, New York, so Chautauqua County. And when he got out of baseball, he dreamed up the application for the infield tarp. So he sold the first ever tarp to Connie Mack, and that guy was from our area. So it kind of gave the tarp its own life, and it was almost like it was meant to be. So you get the tarp and the skunks. It kind of worked out.
Nice. It all ties in rather nicely.
As a Philly fan, I just learned something new. I've never heard that story.
Nice. The American League Philadelphia team back in the day.
Yeah, the one they took away from us.
I think that 1929 team was considered one of the best teams in baseball of all time. If you rank their average and their wins, that was one of the original dynasties were Connie Mack's A's. Unfortunately, he tore both teams down, and they wind up moving to Kansas City in the 50s.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if Philly would have been a two-team town. But
no.
I guess, that would have been very difficult. No. Somebody would have moved. It could have been the Phillies.
Let me tell you, it's not happening.
It's not happening. All right, Frank, were there other names under consideration? I know there was probably historic names like the Jammers or Falcons, but any other wacky names you guys threw around the office?
Yeah. The one that we actually, one of them was, believe it or not, we had Giggling Pines because there's these two big pine trees right outside the stadium. And part of the whole thing with our branding was looking at how can we make it for kids as well. So we had like the pine cones for ice cream cones, and you just kind of try to come up with the whole stadium before you really can land on the name. And Tarp Skunks just stuck because the kids' club's the little stinkers. You got a skunk then in left field. But yeah, I mean, Jamestown has some comedy history. Lucille Ball is from there. There's furniture making history there. So we had the furniture makers come up. There were a lot of like hard hitters or hardwood hitters. Nothing really close to what we were looking for because a lot of it was, I mean, some people were just straight up like, oh, yeah, you should be the Falcons. So you should be the Nationals because we used to be the Expos. Like, yeah, I don't really want to get that letter, that cease and desist. So, but Tarp Skunks kind of rose up to the top really fast when we thought of it, and that was the one.
Yeah, and I like that name. I think when I first heard it, I saw the logo. I said they hit a home run with that. I mean, I was a big fan of the Jammers name, but yeah, Tarp Skunks got you a lot more attention than if you went with another name. How much attention did you guys get just by calling your team the Tarp Skunks?
Oh, man, it's to the point where right now, if something happens that there's no season, we've already outsold the last 5 years of Jamestown teams and in merchandise. And we hit 3 million people on that first day. So that's news feeds like Darren Rovell at ESPN loved the whole kit, retweeted it. Brandios, the guys that create these logos, they tweeted it out too, and they have a pretty intense following, as you can imagine. So if one guy from there, you know, a public kind of guy or a girl like posts it, all of a sudden all these thousands of extra people see it that would have never seen it before. So we hit over 3 million people the first day, and all of a sudden, you know, the next day 2 of the team, the website crashed, our new website. We had so many people trying to get on it overnight that it got knocked out. And our guy our IT guy, Turi, he's pretty funny. He was on it. He wasn't dressed, number one, but he was on his kid's laptop at his house trying to fix it at like 7 a.m, calling me like, yeah, I might not be able to get to the office today. So I'll let you know how this goes. But yeah, we hit so many people with this name. And I think the most proud thing is that Jamestown, NY, and Chautauqua County, NY, ended up in millions of news feeds in the first few days. And I got some personal thank yous from people in town, like our new mayor, as well as Howard Emke's great niece, I believe she was, the fellow who's got the patch on our uniform. So it's been really cool to hear from some nice, people that love what we're doing.
And the biggest, jewel in your cap now, you're on the Stadium Journey podcast.
Exactly. It all led to this moment. I turned 30 a few days ago, and I was thinking probably when I was like 20, I got to get on some podcast by the time I'm 40. That's really going to shoot me through. No, I appreciate it, guys.
Well, that's one better than the rest of us. I don't think we made it before 40, did we?
No.
Well, Dan maybe. But...
I did.
No, not me.
Raking in the dough.
Well, I'm in my mom's basement, so has anyone really made it? Like, I'm locked down in Canada. Come on.
Well, I'm in my actual basement, so
yeah,
I made it from that aspect that I'm a house owner. But
well, I'd be in my basement, but there's no signal down there. So
yeah.
Okay.
So 3 million feeds. Did you guys, when you guys talked to Brandios, they obviously told you the benefits of working with them. Were they even close to the possibility of your site crash in the first day?
I don't know if they'd seen that before. They've seen some crazy stuff though, like with Rocket City, the Trash Pandas, the team that's in Alabama, Madison.
Yep.
They're over $1 million of merch sales, and they haven't played a game yet in that town. New stadium. So Brandios has seen really crazy stuff at a larger scale. But when you take our market size of 31,000 people in that town, I don't know if they were expecting that kind of a reaction. But when you first start speaking to guys like Jason at Brandios, they have, a pretty amazing repertoire that they can show you of what they've done. And I'd actually had the luck of working with them once before, very inadvertently. I was with Vermont, a team in short season single A, and they did our Maple Kings logo for us. If you've seen the little jug that's got the screw thing and the bat, I did a bunch of voiceover work for those commercials, and that's really all I did for that branding or that one day rebrand. But when you say the conversations with Brandios, something big is going to happen because it's how they do it. They've gotten it to a point over these last 20 years where they know how to blow up a brand. But I think even like you said, this was the site crashing and stuff might even have been crazier than they imagined for us.
Well, that's a good thing to have.
Oh, yeah.
That's a very good thing. Okay, so now you go from the name recognition now to try to get fans in the ballpark pre-coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
What were some of the things that your organization was doing to get people back to the ballpark after, I would say, a lukewarm reception to the previous summer collegiate teams?
Yeah, that's fair to say. We have so many plans and had so many plans, and we're at a point like we're 50 some days out right now. When you're 50 some days out and you're like minus the coronavirus, you're still slamming, are we going to get it all done? But now with the coronavirus, it's like, oh man, you don't know what's going to happen. But I like how you worded that before the coronavirus.
Yes.
Get SpongeBob SquarePants in the hopper. We're still trying to get them out if we have a season, a Nickelodeon night with jerseys, Star Wars night, fireworks nights, princess and superhero night, first responders night. A military appreciation night would have been a big night in that area, considering there's so many veterans societies there. That would have been a really stellar night. If we could pull off this season, we definitely, if we're reduced from 27 home games down to 12 in a worst case scenario, one of those nights will be military appreciation. Doesn't matter what we have to do, we'll make it happen. But honestly, guys, it was more about at some, Jamestown in 2018, the team won the championship. But if you walk around Jamestown right now and you ask anybody, name me 3 players from that roster that won, you're going to find out pretty fast that people don't remember a lot of the players on collegiate teams, like the typical fan. Not everybody is like us going to games, keeping score and getting angry about managerial moves and stuff. We were trying to get like mothers, daughters, kids, like the single mom with the child, the young couple between 30 to 40 years old with a kid on the way. We were really, really trying hard to win back the families that might have stopped going over the last few years. There's a lot of factors that play into it, but we were really trying to get the kids back into the ballpark through promotions.
So do you think it was more, or it's going to be more difficult, considering that the team won the championship and then the next year they were gone? Like, have you found that there's any animosity or hard feelings about having an actual championship team which proceeded to disappear right after that?
That's a good question. It depends really who you are talking to in Jamestown. There's a few businesses that were really welcoming and, welcome right back, whether you're the Jammers or whether you change the name, whatever it is, we're here to support baseball. And then you do have some people that take it as kind of a slight when your team wins a championship and packs up. Every team fights uphill in the sponsorship battle, and every year you lose some people sponsors wise. And, imagine being a team and then the day you lose TD Bank or something, you're like, oh God. But there's just stuff like that happens all the time. So when you're coming in new and you're trying to pick up some of the pieces after a championship season, a dark year, it is a really weird thing to follow, and not too many other franchises have had to follow that. But yeah, I think it just depends who you talk to. It had its challenges right off the hop for sure.
Yeah, because I even think that championship game, all the games were played on the road in Amsterdam, if I'm correct, just because of scheduling conflicts. And that Jamestown team was a juggernaut, from what I remember record-wise. But you guys are totally new. There's no connection between that franchise and you. That's what I thought. Okay. So now, what do you say to the fans that grew up on New York Penn League baseball? Are there any animosity from that? Because some fans are very fickle, and they see summer collegiate as maybe not their type of ball.
Yeah, that's something we're up against for sure. When you call the team a juggernaut, you know that's a good team no matter what. You could probably place that 2018 Jammers team in the same. You could probably put them in games against whoever won the New York Penn League in 2018.
Yeah.
And you're going to have some competitive games. we're at a point right now where collegiate ball, these kids are trying to win. They're paying to be there. Some of them get a Christmas gift. You're going to go to Jamestown or Utica to play college ball. So we have kids that want to win, whereas sometimes in the minor leagues, and having worked in short season A ball, you have some plays that are played out because they needed to be played out. You have almost some games that end because, the guy up on the first baseline needs like the time home to first. So last play of the game, just bunt because I didn't get your time yet kind of thing, like not to that extreme, but it's interesting with collegiate ball, I think, because you've got a bunch of players that are really working hard. And I've publicly said it too when we've had questions like at Rotary meetings and things like, I don't want to watch it if it's not minor league baseball. And realistically, what you're watching is as good or perhaps even better than the lowest level of the minor leagues.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Summer Collegiate League. I mean, living here in Massachusetts, I've got 3 leagues right near home. So compare the Perfect Game League talent-wise to some of the other leagues in the area. I know New York State has 2 leagues that operate around the state, right?
They do. There's the Prospect League, which I think we were in for 1 year, and that was long before I got there. But Perfect Game, the entity itself, has it's a ridiculous number. It's like 13,000 players into a major league or a professional uniform. And there's 1,365, I believe, that have made it to the major leagues that have worn a Perfect Game uniform.
Jesus.
So, yeah, these guys have been around since like 1980, roughly, Perfect Game. And it's a younger league, but it's the type of endorsement that it has from Perfect Game. So I don't know, it's almost looking at it like if a hockey league was, a whole league was sponsored by, I don't know, name drop an NHL team, say the Maple Leafs had a whole league. It's like, that there's some backing there, or at least some sort of, there were minds involved in making sure that this was a good league to be in. The league is constantly having meetings about how do we make the league better. When the players are on the field and they look up at what's going on in the ballpark, they want to see fans. We want to make sure that word of mouth is so important among the players. When you leave Jamestown, it couldn't have been a bad experience. It has to be a good experience for employees, players, fans. But to be up there with the Cape Cod League, I think, is a goal for our league. And to be totally honest, I don't think we're that far off considering some of the facilities in our league. And we're only a 10 or 11-year-old league, so we don't have the lore, I guess, that the Cape Cod League has. But we're up there, I think. Any CBL, we're kind of in that same wheelhouse.
So the second level, because I think Cape Cod is pretty recognized as being the top league for now. I mean, it used to be the Alaska League was up there, and they've kind of fallen off. So you mentioned the facilities, and that's been a great thing, at least from our point of view, being stadium geeks, with Stadium Journey, is that it's really given a second life, a second crack at being productive to a lot of old minor league ballparks. And obviously that's the case in Jamestown too. So
sure.
What's the process been to get it to transition the ballpark from the minors to the summer leagues?
That's a great question. It's funny because there haven't been a lot of changes in the last probably 20 years or so at Dietrich Park in terms of the actual, when you walk in, it's still like baseball. Like, whoa, you're in somewhere it feels really cozy. So that hasn't changed. What we're trying to do is just cosmetic changes. We have a new mayor there that's really receptive to the idea of how much attention we just got. There will be a lot of people that come to Jamestown, whether it's this year or the next year, to see the Tarp Skunks. We don't know what's going to happen, but if there's 12 games this year, we'll have people that wouldn't have normally come just to see what the Tarp Skunks is about. They're going to want to see a skunk mascot and all this stuff. So getting the ballpark ready, if you go into one of the home clubhouse right now is still like bright lime green, like immediate migraine. Like, oh my God, what's going on in here? So I think we're going to tone that down a little bit before the home opener.
No.
And things like that will probably need to be done, but it's in decent shape right now to go on it and play.
Yeah, I know there's I don't know where. I want to say Iowa. The visiting clubhouse is painted in pink, and it's done that just to annoy the visiting club. I don't quote me on Iowa, but
I wonder if that works.
it's just something to get in your mind. So you're saying that the home clubhouse was lime. Was that before the Tarp Skunks? Because that's part of your team colors.
It is pre-Tarp Skunks, actually.
Oh, wow. Lime.
Our front office was lime. And the first thing...
Oh, that's right. The Jammers were lime as well. Okay.
Yeah, there was because of the grape.
Yep.
But remember when the Jammers logo was like the guy holding the bats over his shoulder?
Yeah, it was like a wolf, some kind of animal.
There was that one too, yeah. It's funny how it started as an animal and then became a grape.
It became a grape. I actually liked the last logo that the Jammers were going by. I thought it was a good looking. I mean, I like the Tarp Skunks better, but I like that logo as well. Yeah,
it was for that era that it was painted green. Yeah.
Yeah, little touches.
Clubhouse used to have like the Expos logo and the Cardinals and the Tigers, whatever team had played there before. So,
well, I had gone to Dietrich Park several years ago, and I remember, and I want to say it was somewhere on the concourse. They had all these old programs that were framed from the ballpark's history, from the 1940s all the way up until that time. It's just amazing the amount of history that's been played there. And it's a classic ballpark. At one time, that's kind of what you thought about minor league ballparks. And I've been to Elmira, I've been to Oneonta, I've been to Olean, Olean, which is not part of your league. And these are some nice, quaint little ballparks that it's great to see them get some life. So
for
sure. So you got everything going. You got the attention. Coronavirus hits. How was that affecting getting some of your ball players from NCAA colleges?
Yeah, I would imagine that the rate of contagion in New York, the way it's looking right now, how it goes up so much every day, has affected. I know there's a few teams that have already fielded calls from a lot of parents of players saying like, what's going on? Like, we can't give you an answer until we know what's going on, obviously, but nobody's being selfish. It's just like, what are we doing? What happens if it gets, if it's raining at 10 in the morning, do you bang the game or do you wait till 5 p.m.? That's kind of where we're at. We don't know whether or not to just call it now or if it's going to be 12 games or if it's going to be the month of July or whatever. But yeah, everything was going pretty nice until everyone gets thrown out of whack with this virus. Yeah.
So today, speaking of the virus, the NCAA announced that they were going to grant an extra year of eligibility for every athlete that plays a spring sport. Of course, baseball being one of them. How does that, or do you perceive that it will affect the summer collegiate leagues? Maybe if not this year, then next year. Do you think there's going to be an effect with that extra year of eligibility, or it's not going to make much of a difference?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't do the recruiting myself. We have a manager who does, and there's some teams that, the amount of contacts that everybody has in baseball and the amount of college coaches that we know, we can always find players. I don't think there'll necessarily be a problem. What we want to do this year, and it's kind of along the lines of your question, is expand the rosters to the point where any kids that didn't get the time in at NCAA, if we can speak to their coach and pick them up for maybe a month-long season, at least give them some innings, some at-bats. Mm-hmm. The collegiate summer ball leagues right now are almost trying to fill in the place of just help the players, help the fans, help the players get over a loss of a longer part of the MLB season and minor league baseball. But I don't think it'll have, a hindrance on anything. Hopefully that answers your question.
No. Yeah. I was just kind of curious because when do you normally make your roster moves? Like when you know you have a team, is that something when the season's over, or do you start talking to players now, or would you even know that?
Yeah, there's a few teams that, 3 days after last year ended in August 2nd or 3rd, they had their roster together for this year.
Oh, wow.
And then there's some teams like us where there's a little more emphasis put on, not that those guys don't want to win, but there's a little more emphasis put into the patience of,
Yeah.
hey, you have some time to get some good guys and talk to people and find out who's who. So at any point, really, you can get your players, but the communication to the players right now has simply been, we're waiting for more information.
Mm-hmm. And then from the league itself, have they released one statement that they're keeping up to date with the events of the coronavirus? Have they said anything else about a 12-game season, or is that
the 12-game season thing? I mean, it came up. We're not even taking minutes for some of these meetings because things can change so much. You can never refer back to like, oh, well, last week it would have worked. Well, yeah, this week, everyone's dead. So are we going to, not horrible thing to say, but it's how fast it can change. But when you're talking about how our league is a very reputable league, our league president is Robert Julian, who was actually the New York Penn League commissioner for several years. He's got connections directly to Major League Baseball and the same people that MLB talks to from the CDC in regards to what are we doing. So that like the league, we have a meeting tomorrow, for instance. Every Wednesday, I think we're going to be having one for the foreseeable future until we find out, what's the effect? What is this going to do to our season? But yeah, man, it's a tough one to answer.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of it's just playing a waiting game, honestly.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand. This is quite a way to start your inaugural season.
Yeah.
So, speaking of inaugural seasons, something you had told me is that your father was the original general manager of the Montreal Expos.
He was.
He also was the manager during their 1981 playoff.
Yep.
And was there guiding them to decisive Game 5 in the NLDS. So how did your father get involved in baseball, and how easy was it to follow his footsteps?
Well, he got involved. He was born in Chicago, but he grew up in Manita, Iowa, which had 100 people living in it. And the high school team that he was on in 1943 or 4 had 4 guys go to pro ball on a 10-person team. So good ball players coming from the Midwest. He made it. He signed in 1950, and he was toiling in the minor leagues. He almost quit in 1953 to be a gym teacher. He had a good year in Cedar Rapids, and he got called up to the big leagues at the end of 54, 5, and 6, and then played the full season in 1957 for the Cubs. So awesome stories from those years. I mean, just the amount of guys that, like, I could just growing up, obviously you're looking at like pictures of Jackie Robinson all the time, and a lot of those, Hank Aaron's and Willie Mays, Stan Musials, and he has or had a story about all of them. Whether he knew them personally, it was like, yeah, I remember when he stood in the box while I was catching. Didn't say anything to each other back then, but yeah, he got into the, I guess in the late 60s or late 50s, he got more into the coaching and management side, and he coached and managed up till about 61, ended up in the Braves front office in Milwaukee, where he met John McHale, who was a Tigers player, I think of the 1930, what was it? He took an at-bat in like the 1945 World Series or something. Won the World Series with the Tigers, had one at-bat. So that's like the old Charlie Silvera or whatever, the Yankee backup catcher to Yogi Berra.
Yeah, well,
who was just there to load up his hand with rings. Like, yep, I was there too. But just must have been fun. But
I'll take it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, my dad ended up with the Braves, did a lot of work with them in their front office, and helped move them to Atlanta, and was actually like the acting guy back in Milwaukee the year that they were going to move to Atlanta.
Okay.
Ended up in the front of the commissioner's office for a year, and he started what was called at the time the Federal Scouting Bureau, which became the Major League Scouting Bureau. So if you go to the Major League Scouting Bureau website and you go to their Wikipedia page, for like the last 12 years, they'd never mentioned my dad, or the Central Scouting Bureau, I'm sorry, the CSB. They'd never mentioned my dad. And all of a sudden, like a few months ago, I checked and there was a mention of him. I was like, okay. It finally, he's getting a little bit of credit. But he became the first GM of the Expos in '69 through that relationship with John McHale, who we knew in the Milwaukee and Atlanta years. And that was a 25-year ride that he always spoke very fondly of.
So I assume you'd be a big fan of baseball returning to Montreal.
Absolutely. Okay. It'd be different, though. You know, like it's the thing we always talk about is every fan wants it to be the way it was. They want the tricolor. They want the Expos. They want Gary Carter. You had a 36-year history of a team that it's like somebody's life. You know, it's like a brother that dies at 36. Like, man, what could have been? You have to start over. You almost can't even be the Expos because that was a product of Expo 67. You know, like that was the World's Expo, the fair. Oh, yeah. Expo 67. So, I mean, if you take that name even, you're almost setting yourself up for memories that can't be repeated. That's my personal opinion. I think they will get baseball one day, but we'll see what they call it.
Yeah, it's if you've ever had the chance, I'm sure, Frank, you've read it. Jonah Carey's book on the history of the Expos is phenomenal. Of course, talks a whole ton about your dad because it's right at the beginning. Do you see any sort of semblance between like what you're doing now and what he was doing back then? Because the stories of the Expos at the beginning were like it was almost a fly by night sort of operation. Like they played in a I don't even know what you want. It's practically a quarry with a tiny little fence. Like everything was last minute. Getting players was last minute, and it just seemed like an adventure the whole time.
For sure, there's some similarity. Absolutely. Fortunately for us, not the kind of pressure that goes into, you know, a first-year major league team where there's a little more pressure on you to win. On that, the Expos, knowing that the French-Canadian people had never seen baseball, they weren't familiar with it, you had to come up pretty quick with ways to keep the games entertaining. So my dad and the promotions guys and whoever it was that was doing all the hiring, you bring in the French-Canadian organist who's playing all the traditional music. You get people, you know, guy had a season ticket for his duck. You got like a dancer.
Season ticket for his duck.
Yeah, there were.
Never heard that. Awesome.
It's nuts. Jerry Park had some of the closest. It was like a county fair. I mean, you had to promote it like it was the minor leagues before the minor leagues. You were basically promoting Major League Baseball like the minor leagues now because you had to teach people the game first, but also get them to want to go because the team's not going to be good. They knew in '69 we're not going to win. So they didn't win till like 10 years later, but they wanted to win sooner.
and the sports culture in Montreal is so different. They are very much about their own, and the hockey has always been like that. Like the most popular Canadians have always been the French Canadian players, and finding like Canadian baseball players in the 60s and 70s was difficult. Finding French Canadian baseball players is almost impossible.
Yeah.
But those fans, when they find someone they like, and they can kind of francisize them, they sort of French them up a bit. Like they just cling to them forever, right? Like you have Rusty Staub, who's an Expos god, but they had to francisize him, right? He's not. You could go to Montreal and talk about Rusty Staub, and a lot of people would be like, "Who you talk about?" But you say the Grand Orange, and everybody knows who that is, right? Same sort. You know, Ken Dryden, same sort of thing. You know, he's an Ontario guy or whatever, but he goes there, he starts speaking some French, and suddenly he's a hero.
You learn that language over there, and even if you were to go there right now and just go into a gas station and try to speak French, you're going to get much more respect from them, I think, if you do that. I mean, it is a French place, so.
Yeah.
So did you spend any time there as a kid, or?
I did quite a bit of time there. I grew up until I was 10 years old. I was in Quebec, south of Montreal, St. Lazare it was called. That was like Equestrian County. It was really nice. And have been back several times a year, especially when I lived in Vermont. I would go up almost every weekend to see family, and French-Canadian architecture and buildings, and the women in Montreal are astounding too. So there's just a lot of good things to keep going to Montreal for.
Is there anything positive that you can say about the Olympic Stadium?
No.
Yeah, no, I loved it as a kid. I mean,
Who's
that's
gonna?
about all I can say.
Now, is that just because you had the run of the place and you could go wherever you wanted?
The carte blanche or whatever you call it might
Yeah.
have helped a bit,
It's
but
absolutely my least favorite stadium ever. I was lucky enough to go on Gary Carter Day 2 years in a row. And at that time they were, this was after '94, of course, when basically they felt betrayed by the World Series not happening, and then Larry Walker and
Pedro.
all those guys were gone, Pedro, and they basically had Vlad Guerrero and nobody, but yeah, they're getting 8,000 or 9,000 on a regular day. You go to Gary Carter Day and they got 30,000. It really kind of unbelievable. But it's one place I've walked into, and I know Paul and Mark, you guys hate those indoor stadiums. This one was the worst. You walked in and it just felt like there was something wrong with the air. Like it was like this. It just doesn't taste right.
years of cigarette smoking indoors.
Yeah.
Could be.
Why did I get a Denny Lemieux flashback right there? My allergies to these fans has returned.
No, I know what you're saying. I loved it as a kid, but I think what happens, I mean, your Veteran Stadium looked like that, but it didn't have a roof. A lot of those old 80s joints were like that, that round thing, but
I hated that stadium for what it's worth.
yeah.
Yeah. I hated the
Pittsburgh
fans.
had
at
one too,
Veterans
right?
Stadium.
Didn't Pittsburgh have a stadium? like
Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah.
the Raiders,
Pittsburgh,
yeah.
Cincinnati, Atlanta, St. Louis, they all had that concrete cookie cutter look.
sketch dome?
RFK.
RFK, yeah, and I think most of them are gone.
Cleveland kind of too.
Well, Cleveland was like
older, but it
Montreal.
was-
Yeah, Cleveland was with Montreal was built for the Olympics and as a multi-purpose facility. But yeah, I was actually at Olympic Stadium my first time on Gary Carter's last game in '92,
Oh wow.
and he got that double over Andre Dawson's head. And I'm a Met fan, so Gary Carter's awesome to me, and that was probably the loudest I've ever seen the stadium there. So it was cool to see Gary go out in style. Maybe a home run would have been nicer, but I know when Gary Carter passed away, I actually cried. That was something very sad to hear about for somebody so young, because
It was really young.
yeah, we loved him in New York, and you guys loved him in Montreal, and I wish the Mets would retire his number. The Expos did the right thing and did that. So, but
Gary
that's
Carter
about it.
really transcended a few fan bases, even the Dodgers and Giants when he was there for like a year. He's still the guy.
You couldn't hate him. You
No,
just couldn't. I
He's
mean,
just
you
so
could make-
nice and so
Yeah.
wholesome.
You couldn't hate him, and he backed it up with his play. I mean, he started the rally in Game 6, and even that.
Oh, I don't like him then.
Yeah, even the 1981 National League Division National League Championship Series, I think he gets a walk with 2 outs in the ninth,
He sure did.
and instead of walking, he's clapping his hands running down the first.
Yeah,
Just like, okay, let's do this. We're only down a run. So
for sure. My dad never thought the game was over.
yeah,
At no point did he think that game was over. He thought, I remember he told me, and there's some old documentaries too, where there's like the filmed in like 93 or 4.
Mhm.
You have some of the guys who were alive that day that are talking.
Wait a minute. 93 is old now?
I feel like it is now. Gee.
well,
Yeah, I was 10, so yes.
yeah,
I'm still ready to
Continue, Frank.
write.
I'm sorry.
I'm ready to write like 2006 on stuff still. Like, what?
Yeah.
What happened? But, yeah, I mean, at no point, I know my dad said he never thought that ball was leaving the ballpark. And when it did, it was like, oh, God, we got to come back in the bottom half. And I think everyone on the team thought that they had the chance still. It just was not to be. But hell of a way to – I mean, that's a month of managing in the major leagues and just a heck of a way to come back from a split season for that team. It's just too bad nothing happened since then for them.
No, you're right. It's the 92 team was in second place. The 94 team, you had the strike.
Yeah.
It's just a series of bad luck. And then, you look at some of the talent that your father must have found as well. Andre
Yeah.
Dawson, Tim Raines, Carter.
Yeah.
He traded Rusty Staub to the Mets for Ken Singleton, which
Yeah.
I think the Expos got a little better in that trade.
They did. They got Foley and I think Jorgensen.
Jorgensen and Foley. They got some good defense. Yeah. And that 73 team was also vying for a division as well. So I used to talk to an old neighbor of mine who grew up in Norfolk or was living in Norfolk. He used to tell me how great Kenny Singleton was, and would have loved to see him with the Mets as much as Rusty Staub, means a lot to the New York Mets organization. That was a very, I would say, probably was a trade that was not viewed as being popular among the Expos fans. Did you ever talk about that or?
Oh yeah, there was.
Did they vilify him?
My dad, not so much. I think after a few years, it just, it kind of went into the press at the time. It's like, just wait and see what happens. So that trade ended up being pretty good. You guys made it to the World. You won the pennant in 73, right?
73, yeah. And Rusty Staub did help the Mets, of course. I think what hurts me is that the Mets traded Rusty Staub a couple years later. Obviously, I was in diapers when this happened.
Yeah.
They traded him for Mickey Lolick, who was a disaster, and Staub goes on to Detroit, has about 3 pretty decent years where he knocks in 100 RBIs. But maybe if they kept Rusty Staub, maybe that trade would not be that bad. But would have Singleton was a much more productive player well into the 1980s. But
for sure, look up just as a side note, when you look up Rusty Staub's stats next, look at his total bases and look how many Hall of Famers that he's in front of.
I tell you, if he had stayed in the American League instead of being a premier pinch hitter for the Mets, maybe he gets 3,000 hits. Yeah. I don't know, but maybe he does. By the time I saw him play, he was this big, rounded guy with red hair that came out to pinch hit from time to time.
Yeah.
But he was a stud, Rusty Staub. That guy, learned the language as well. He always talked about Montreal on Mets telecast. Said he loved the city, where a lot of players did not like Montreal. They complained about it, but he was interviewing Oil Can Boyd one time, who had been traded to Montreal, and he goes, "I love this city. What do you think about it?" And Oil Can said whatever he needed to say. So
yeah, those
are some good times.
For sure.
And I used to love Montreal too, just because you were 18, you can drink up there. So my buddies and I would go up there for a long weekend and hang out on, what was it? Crescent Street, I think it was called.
Okay, Crescent, yeah.
Crescent and St. Catherine's.
St. Catherine, yeah.
We had a good time.
I'm sure you did. And bonne journée dans la cité.
Oh, we probably were there. I just can't say it as good as you.
So, Frank,
très bien. It was great.
As a little kid running around Olympic Stadium, did you have a favorite player or a favorite person in the organization? Somebody who was like super nice to you, or?
Oh yeah, there was this dude in the elevator, Claude. No one ever knew who he was, but he used to have double bubble. And we get in the elevator,
nice.
Monsieur Claude and double bubble, and he would give you one. It's like, "Oh, Monsieur Fanning, hello," and like give me a piece of gum. No one knows who that is, but Mark Grzylonik, for some reason, as a kid, he's such a hustler. I don't know what it was about Grzylonik. I really liked him. There was a CBC broadcaster, Jim Bay, who was always at the stadium that I used to love seeing him. Guys with the team. Gene Glenn was really cool when he was over there. Mark Gardner was really cool. And when we got to see them come back with the Giants and stuff, it was really cool to see them. Dan Lunetta is just a phenomenal guy. He's the director of minor league operations for the Tigers right now. But when I was growing up, he was in the Expos front office. He was a traveling secretary one year. He just bounced around position to position. So there's some guys that are still in baseball now. There were quite a few actually ended up going to Miami when Mr. Loria took most of the computers as well when he left the Olympic Stadium. So I took a lot of staff. But yeah, I loved, for some reason, Mark Grzylonik. I don't know what it was. I just thought he was such a hustler, and I was like trying to play hard as a kid too. Liked him, liked Vlad, Orlando Cabrera, obviously. But yeah, just some really cool people. And when you get to go to the stadium, I remember like one of my favorite memories ever was just being dropped off by my dad. Like, okay, the Rockies were in town. We went to the clubhouse, the visiting clubhouse. And he's like, Larry, like, watch Frank for a bit. Because my dad signed Larry Walker. So like $1,500 when he was playing out of Saskatchewan.
Hall of Famer.
And it was just like, okay, watch Frank. And this like Dante Bichette is huge, like massive arms and a cut off T-shirt, and they're playing cards with Galarraga and Walker. And I was just sitting there like, whoa, like, do I
Wow.
see anything? No.
There's some names that all have Canada connections there.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I mean, it must be exciting for your family to see Larry Walker make it to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that was a big deal for us.
Hopefully this year, assuming they have maybe it'll be a virtual ceremony or something. I don't know.
That'd be crazy.
Wow. Let's hope it doesn't get there, but
No.
anything's possible at this point.
who
It's
knows?
I don't know when I'll be at a game next.
Yeah, none of us do, unfortunately. So Frank, before we wrap up, I want to pivot back to the Tarp Skunks for a minute. Could you give our listeners a peek behind the curtain? So, as a general manager of a team, what are your duties, and what does your day consist of working for a team?
Oh man, I love this question, but at the same time, I don't always like it because you forget like everything you did in a day.
Yeah.
I went to the bathroom like 10 minutes ago, and
well, you don't have to get into that much detail.
well, I make coffee in the morning, and honestly, so much of baseball at this level, and I've spoken to classes and stuff before too, university classes, and all I say is when you're in minor league baseball or collegiate ball, whatever level, if you can bring revenue in the door, they have a lot harder time letting go of you. So you have to look at almost 40% of every single day. If you can make it more, I try to make it more than 40% of every day, goes towards chasing somebody, whether it's for groups, whether it's for tickets, whether it's for a partnership, putting a patch on a jersey, whatever it is. The guys in the office were always trying to sell. That's honestly like the heaviest part of it is the sales, but the fun stuff is more of the operational stuff, the uniform design, the orders, anything merchandise related. All the merch that you see on the Tarp Skunks team store was stuff that I had to choose out of a magazine, put the design on, and with our designer locally, we would put it all together. That stuff is really fun. The HR stuff is not so much fun, running the payroll. Anything that has to do with accounting, not always the most fun, bank deposits. But those are things that come up. You could be in the middle of doing something, boom, phone rings, stop what you're doing to sell a season ticket, go over to the machine, run it, print it, make the copies, staple it into the binder, whatever you got to do, put it on the site, send them the confirmation email. A lot of spreadsheets, a lot of handling of budgets, which I hadn't had to do before this year. Basically, sales is number one, and operations, team travel, hotel. I was doing just from home today in Canada, kind of reconfirming some of our hotels and finding out where we're at with a lot of people. And a lot of guys at this rate or at this stage of the game globally are offering, pretty nice rates on if there's a cancellation, because everybody's in the same boat. No one wants to be the guy whose true colors show out in a catastrophe like this, and then no one talks to them after. So we're dealing with good people. Mascot creation, like God, there's a lot of stuff that with a new franchise especially, but any general manager for the most part, I would say it starts with sales, and then my day just kind of goes from there in whatever direction really the phone rings. You follow the phone around, I guess.
All right, I guess that's a good a spot as any to wrap things up, I guess. We'll check in with you in a couple months, Frank, see where you are.
Can I ask you guys a quick question?
Absolutely.
Yes.
What are each of your favorite ballparks?
What level?
All time.
PNC in Pittsburgh.
Major League. I love PNC. I also like San Francisco's ballpark, whatever that's called. What is it called now?
Oracle.
I like Oracle.
Yeah.
And I like Target Field up in.
Oracle helps Batman.
Yeah. No, I like
Just
Target
saying.
Field in Minnesota. Yeah, minor league wise, Brooklyn's a great ballpark. CHS Field in St. Paul, Minnesota. It's an independent ballpark. St. Paul Saints. That's probably my favorite minor league independent league ballpark. It's just amazing the stuff they do there to attract fans.
That's awesome.
Oh, geez. For me, my favorite major league park would probably be PNC. I hate to make it unanimous, but, PNC, Camden Yards. I love Camden Yards. I worked for the Paw Sox for a dozen years, so McCoy Stadium's got a special place for me, but I like the ballpark in Frisco is one I really enjoyed when I went there.
I will say Major League Camden Yards is my favorite. That is the best experience I've ever had in the little amount of East Coast baseball trips I've had. Minor League, I'm going to say, well, I've only been to 3. River Shark Stadium, I'm going to give an honorable mention.
That was a nice one, Dan. Yeah.
Because it was goddamn nice, and I miss it more now that it's gone. It fizzled rather than with a bang. It was just like, okay, it's over, and now we're getting rid of the building 5 years later. Just that's where my grandfather, who I'd never met, received a posthumous Korean War medal during a ceremony at River Shark. So it also has it was just the gimmick for the baseball game, Paul. I saw that.
It was posthumous. How did he get there?
Well, my grandmother received it.
I was trying to be wise.
Oh, no, but it's something about a baseball stadium on the river, even though it's the Delaware. Just made that unique with the look of Ben Franklin Bridge in the background. I really miss that place.
Yeah, and it, you look at Dietrich Park, which has been around since 1941, and Campbell's Field in Camden, New Jersey, was around for about 10 years, 12 years. It's you scratch your head. You scratch your head and wonder why. Why did you build it?
Well, I mean,
they built it and no one came.
No one came. That's why.
Well, you know what? The Phillies could have put a New York Penn League team in there, and
the Phillies can barely put a bullpen together. Okay,
they could have put a team.
For Christ's sake, they can barely get a team together. They get the best player in baseball, arguably. They have the best catcher in baseball, not even arguably, and they can't put any pitching together. You expect them to do anything with that building? I'm going to shut up now.
Here goes Dan.
No, I'm fine. It's pork roll. It's pork roll, Mark. It's pork roll.
Taylor ham. Get yourself a Taylor ham and cheese sandwich.
Frank, we're sorry to drag you into the old pork roll versus Taylor ham controversy we've had brewing for 3 years. It's not a controversy.
He's wrong and I'm right.
You had 08, man.
I'm not. It's a gimmick, dude. I'm not that angry. I'm angry at our front office, but it's more to put up just for reactions. Joe Girardi. I got Joe Girardi. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, well, you got a better manager than us.
Yeah, I can't wait till the baseball season to start. Oh wait,
whenever that is.
You guys let me know whenever you need anything. All right, happy to come back whenever you need me.
Oh, absolutely. We'd love to have you back. Frank, do you want to take a second and let our listeners know where they can find you or the Tarp Sharks? What is it?
Tarp Sharks.
Tarp Sharks.
We were Camden for a second. I got all mixed up.
No, that's wrong.
Chevy Chase did that on Saturday Night Live, right?
Tarp Skunks. Yeah.
The skunk's got the oxygen tank that you shoot when it's in its mouth, like End of Jaws.
They need a bigger tarp.
It's tarpskunks.com. And if you go to tarpskunks.com, you'll find ticket prices, season ticket stuff. You'll find everything there. You can find our bios. You can find our current roster and the schedule there in the shop as well. Nice. Skunk junk.
Skunk junk. Brilliant.
Don't funk with the skunk. That's the tagline for the year.
Nice. You ever hear the old Extreme song, Get the Funk Out?
No, but we can use that now that you say it.
There you go. You sure can.
Pornography is an excellent album.
It sure the hell is.
It really
one of my favorites.
I'm being serious. That is not facetious or sarcastic. That is.
Then they released More Than Words and.
Well, that's off Pornography.
That's off that album.
Yeah. Then they did part 3, and it's not that good.
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Okay, I'll shut up.
We're gonna have an album, The Grand Skunk Railroad. That's what we're gonna. Wah, wah.
Above average. I understand that more than you know.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks
Frank.
for joining
Pleasure
us.
to have you. Good luck this season if it ever gets started.
All right, appreciate it, guys.
Take care.
See ya. I don't know how to do this.
I got you.
That was Frank Fanning from the Jamestown Tarp Skunks. Thanks for joining us tonight, Frank. And best of luck to you guys in your inaugural season in Jamestown. And that's all the time we have for tonight. Normally, this is the time of the show where we talk about our visits, where we've been, where we're going. But I don't think anybody wants to hear about us, our trip maybe to the grocery store or a walk around the block just to get some fresh air. So I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And Dan, follow him online at DanLaw83. Mark, how about you? Where can our listeners follow you online?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Ballpark Hunter. You can also check out my YouTube channel, which is Ballpark Hunter, posting up videos every Monday and Thursday. Check them out.
I got to say, if you ever visit the Stadium Journey website, Mark is cranking out the material right now. I think he's responsible for 75% of our material since the virus hit.
I got plenty more. Coming up. I just had to take a break the last few days. But
hey, beautiful. So there's still stuff. If you visit the website, there's lots of new material, lots of classic, looking back, looking forward, all kinds of different stuff. We're still cranking out reviews from the last college basketball season and the college baseball season. So plenty of new stuff. And next Monday, the day that was supposed to be the final NCAA college game, we're putting out the biggest ranking list we've ever done at Stadium Journey. Every single NCAA college basketball gym ranked from number 1 to number 338. The reason it's not 350 is we don't have all of them in there.
Yeah, I know. I think Ryder is one of them.
Yeah, it's a strange mix of places we've missed. There's no.
It's like, wait a minute. My mom is 15 minutes away from Ryder. How did that get?
What are you doing? Get on that.
Yeah. I haven't been home. I was supposed to go home, and never mind.
That's not allowed.
Dave, how about you? Where can our listeners follow you online?
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ProFan9. You can also go to my YouTube channel, Dave Cotney, but most of my stuff ends up in my reviews anyway.
And you can find me online, Twitter or Instagram at PuckmanRI. Don't forget to check out the website, like I was telling you, stadiumjourney.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Stadium Journey. We got a YouTube channel too. You can find the Stadium Journey podcast as well as all of HIAC Talk Radio's other great content at thebradyhicks.com or watch all of the podcasts on YouTube at youtube.com/danlaw83. And follow HIAC Talk Radio at where else? HIAC Talk Radio. And you can join us in 2 weeks when we'll review our trips to the grocery store, walks around the neighborhood, and more. No, seriously, folks. I think in 2 weeks we're going to be talking about our favorite sports movies. Right?
Nice.
Everybody's home, doing a lot of movie watching, so it might be our topic.
Yeah, hashtag stay home, God damn it.
Yeah, well, we're all staying. Well, I'm not staying home. I got to work every day. But other than that, I'm staying home.
Wash your hands, take off your clothes.
Hey, if Paul walked around his neighborhood, that would be one hell of a long walk.
Yeah.
There's lots of trees and grass. If I take a wrong turn,
it's a big block.
Yeah, you've been there, Dave. So yeah, it sure is. So for Frank Fanning, Dan Calachico, Mark Viquez, and Dave Cotney, I'm Paul Baker. Everybody, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.